Now, with a quick show of hands, how many of you guys here today think that these are baby owls? All right, I see a couple of hands. And how many of you think that they're adult owls? All right. Now, I still saw quite a few people who did not raise their hand at all, so I'm going to ask one more question. How many of you have absolutely no idea how old these owls are, but you do know that they're just the cutest thing you have ever seen in your entire life? There's the hands I wanted to see. Well, if you said that Buster and Gimli are adult owls, then you can go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back because you are correct. Buster and Gimli here are fully grown adult eastern screech owls. Now, I will admit that the name screech owl, it is a bit misleading though, because these birds, they don't really screech. And they also don't make typical sounds associated with owls. In other words, they pretty much just don't give a hoot. But the noise that they actually make is more of a wavering whistle type call, and it sounds a bit like this. Now, as we bring our owls around for everybody to see, you guys will notice that they both have these very long feathers sticking out from the top of their heads. A lot of people actually mistake these for ears, but they're actually not, and they have nothing at all to do with hearing. Instead, these feather tufts are actually called plumicorns, and their purpose is for camouflage.
So cute, look at them.
If these two were in the wild and they saw something really frightening, like a predator, then they would stick those plumicorns up as tall as they possibly could, make their body very skinny, and close their eyes. And by doing so, they could perfectly camouflage in with tree bark. Now there are different types of trees and different shapes of bark, so naturally, there are different colors of screech owls. Buster here with me is called a gray phase, and Gimli with Brad is called a red phase. But there's actually one more color of these birds that we don't have, and that is called the brown phase. Now those guys are actually pretty rare. You can really only find them around Florida. So if any of you guys can also be found around Florida, make sure that you're keeping an eye out for them, because they are beautiful birds. Now, sadly though, these little guys are facing a really big threat out in the wild, and it's actually us and our vehicles. So the problem arises whenever we're driving around at night and our headlights are on. Now, of course, there's nothing we can do about that. We need our headlights, but it can cause them to get very spooked and cause them to fly right out into the street and get struck by cars in the process. Now this is really unfortunate. I see a few really sad faces in the audience, but there is good news, and it's that if this ever happens to you while you're driving, you can absolutely stop and help that bird. It's actually incredibly easy. All you'll need is a towel, blanket, t-shirts, and you're going to use whatever item you have on hand to wrap these guys up into a cozy little burrito. And then you're going to want to take them straight to the closest vet or wildlife rehabilitation center. Now, believe it or not, this is actually exactly why we have both Buster and Gimli. They were both found on the side of the road after being struck by vehicles, and they were both left with very serious injuries, which prevent them from being able to survive out in the wild. Now, for Buster here, his injury is very clear. He's not just winking at you guys for a very long time. He does only have one eye. And that's because he suffered a lot of that impact in those eyes, and it caused what's called a retinal detachment. Meaning that his eye was in a lot of pain, and it was not going to get better. So, that eye did have to be removed. That way we can ensure that he would be comfortable and pain-free for the rest of his life. But this also means that if he were out in the wild, he would not be able to see both predators and prey as well as he would have to. Now for Gimli over there, his injury is a lot less obvious. He actually suffered head trauma and a deformed beak. Now that beak injury just did not heal correctly, so if he were out in the wild, he would not have the ability to successfully catch and kill his own prey. And he also had a very long rehabilitation process, so he got pretty used to the idea of having personal chefs. In fact, we actually did something called a live prey test with Gimli, which is where we test our rehab patients to see if they would be able to fend for themselves. So we put a live mouse in Gimli's enclosure overnight with hopes that he would be able to catch and eat it. But when we came back in the next day to check on them, we discovered that they had become best friends. So that would not have worked out too well for Gimli out in the wild. But if you guys do happen to stumble across a sick or injured bird of prey, please make sure that you are contacting your closest professional, because in the hands of a licensed professional, that bird will have the best chance at recovery and the best chance at going back out into the wild where they belong. Now, Buster and Gimli here are the smallest birds that you're going to see in today's show. So would anyone here like to take a guess at how much they might weigh? If you have a guess, go ahead and shout it out at me. How many pounds?
2 pounds.
2 ounces, 6 ounces. All right. 65 ounces. All right. You guys are actually, I'm hearing some really good guesses. But believe it or not, these two both clocked in this morning at a arm-breaking 5 ounces.
Oh, wow.
Which is roughly the same weight as a baseball. So if you guys want to know what it's like to hold a bird like this, then all you gotta do is go home, pick up a baseball. And if you're a big fan of these two, and you want your very own screech off for yourself, then all you have to do is roll that baseball around in a few feathers, maybe stick a couple of googly eyes on it, and there you have it, your very own screech off balance on your hand. So, what did you guys think of our tiny but mighty owls, Buster and Gimli?
Alright. All headed man. Now, of course, Buzz flies by. You're here. She's pretty loud, of course, in her wings. So, we've got a question. What do vultures eat out there? Just yell at.
Dead things.
Arian, dead things. I didn't hear all of those. Now, anything is, yes, that is correct. Arian is the proper term we love to use here. Now, of course, as Buzz flies by, you might hear she makes a little grunting noise. You might hear, because vultures don't have a voice box. They don't have anything like other birds do. All they do is grunt and hisses out there in the water. It's pretty much what these guys actually make. Now, of course, though, as of black vultures, they're most common around here. The other one being the turkey vulture as well. But even with this, though, for the black vulture, they are still, as you see, very bald. As we say, bald is beautiful here in our show. Guys, you're welcome. But of course, though, from these guys, they really like to scurry along the grounds looking for anything scavenging. Very, very cute at how they actually scavenge and run around, as you can see. Buzz here is one of our oldest vultures we have here in our shows. Because Buzz is 38 years old. But sometimes she likes her spotlight here in our show every once in a while. Come here, girl. But sometimes she has her favorites. But she is still one of our proud ones we love to have around here in our show. So why don't we give it up to our black vulture here? Oh, hi Buzz. Hi. Can we go back here for a little bit? Go. Okay, let's go. Like I said, she has been in our shows for many years. She thinks she should be the star pupil of the show. So, now, of course I said vultures are definitely one of them known here, but you know they're very, very intelligent. And I mean very intelligent, but they know how to make their very own social media, like Instagram, for instance. These two we have here at the American Eagle Foundation named George the Vulture and Ash the Vulture. So, If you like to follow more Vulture content, take a picture of the screen. I promise you, you will not regret it. We have hilarious content and more Vulture facts, but also very hilarious stuff we do at the American Indian Foundation. So take a picture of the screen for us. But again, give it up for our Black Vulture this Friday.
All right, you guys. Now, before we bring out our next bird, I want you all to take a listen to the sound that she makes. You guys recognize that? You've probably heard it in a few of your favorite movies and TV shows, but I want you guys to hang on to your guesses about what kind of bird this might be, and allow me to introduce you all to the voice of Hollywood's raptors, a red-tailed hawk. This is Jessie. Now, as I look out into the crowd, I see a few surprised faces, and I am willing to bet that most of you were expecting a bald eagle to come out. Well, if this is the case for you, then I'm sorry to say, but it means that you have been tricked by Hollywood. Because the noise that a bald eagle actually makes is more of a high-pitched chirp that you guys can hear for yourselves if you stand right in front of Eagle Mountain Sanctuary. But Hollywood does not think that sounds super majestic, so they tend to dub over that with a red-tailed hawk's call that Jessie's demonstrating for you all today. Now, red-tailed hawks get their name from their iconic brick red tail that you can see on Jessie here, but they don't actually get this bold coloration until they reach about 2 years old. Up until then, their tails are just a plain brown and striped color that match the coloration on her chest and her wings. Now, speaking of her chest and her wings, I'm pointing that out because I want you guys to check out that beautiful patterning and banding. This is actually really unique because it is entirely unique to Jessie. And that's because these patterns on a red-tailed hawk are just as unique as our fingerprints are, meaning that no two individuals look exactly alike. Now, I do want to ask you all a question. How many of you guys here today have ever heard the term hawk eyes before? All right, seems like most of us have. Well, believe it or not, this is actually a really accurate term, and it absolutely describes red-tailed hawks like Jessie, because these birds have a remarkable sense of sight. To put it into perspective for you all, if Jessie here were a human, she would actually be able to read the fine print of a newspaper from up to a half a mile away. And they have such incredible vision, so they can scout their prey out for miles and miles on end. But just because they can go to those distances, it doesn't mean that they're going to. These birds are considered opportunistic hunters, meaning they're a little bit lazy, and they would rather wait for their prey to come to them. That's why it's very common to see these guys perched in a treetop or sitting along a power line, waiting on something to come right beneath them so they can swoop down and catch it. But sadly though, this behavior can actually cause a lot of problems for them. Similarly to our eastern screech owls, these guys are facing a really big issue with their vehicles. But this time, it's not the headlights that are causing a problem for them. It's actually our food scraps. So I know that when I was growing up, my parents always told me that it is totally fine to throw things like apple cores, banana peels out of the car window as they were driving because it's biodegradable. It'll either break down or some hungry animal will come along and eat it. But as it turns out, there's actually some harm in doing this, because all of those food scraps attract little mice and rats into the street. And that is what these guys love to catch. And sadly, nobody taught red-tailed hawks to look both ways before crossing the road. So oftentimes, they'll be sitting on a power line, they'll see an easy snack right in front of them, go down to get it, and get hit by cars in the process. In fact, this is actually the #1 reason why we see animals come into our rehabilitation center, which is of course really sad, but the good news is that there's a very easy way that I guess she just wanted to tell you guys for herself. Now, there's a very easy way way that you guys can help the wildlife around us, and that is just to simply hold on to your trash and your food scraps until you can dispose of them properly. And Jessie and all of her wild friends will thank you for it. Now Jessie here, she is one of our oldest birds. She has been making appearances in our shows for over 20 years now. So we like to say that she is one of our most vocal, but also one of our most talented feathered educators. So, how about a hand for Miss Jessie?
Alright, we're getting down to our last part. Just have something really say to everyone here about the American Eagle Foundation. Because here at the American Eagle Foundation, we care for all our birds here you saw in our show, plus all 25 non-releasable bald eagles here at Eagle Mountain Sanctuary, which is the largest Eagle Mountain Sanctuary in the United States. Now, of course, though, here at the American Eagle Foundation, we make sure that all of our birds make sure they get the food they need, the shelter they need, and the vet care we need if possible. Because here at the American Eagle Foundation, we are a non-profit organization. The thing we rely a lot on is on donations. Anything from $1 to your life savings account. Take it no matter what. Now, the thing is, though, all of it goes back to the care of our